All right, Ricardo, and we're back with Week 11. A lot of shootouts. This was a balanced week. Yeah, so we had quite a few shootouts. We had a couple of shootouts, but we also had some less exciting games from the offensive standpoint. So, for example, we're going to be talking about the Jets and the Patriots today, and that was a very uneventful game, right literally down to the last second of it. When the rookie special teamer Marcus Jones ran it back for a punt return touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, a lot of like you said, a lot of shootouts and a lot of slugfest on the defensive side. Very balanced week of football, and I guess it's a lot to talk about. Let's go ahead and get started.
Absolutely. Let's not waste any time. I'm Jose.
And I'm Ricardo.
And welcome back to RJ Talks, guys. All right, Ricardo, to start off, the Chiefs at the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, I recall us a few weeks ago, Ricardo, not even a few weeks ago, I want to say months ago, talking about Isaiah Pacheco and how he looked pretty good, going into this season. And he had a stellar game. Statistically speaking, I believe it was his best game. 15 attempts for 107 yards, and he averaged 7 yards per carry. Right, and on top of that, too, he was the first running back, and I read this off of CBS. He was the first running back since Week 4 of last season for Kansas City to have 100-plus rushing yards in a single game. So the kid's not sleeping. Kid's nothing to sleep at, right? On top of that, too, you had Travis Kelce also showing up to this game. 6 receptions for 115 yards and an average of 19.2 yards and 3 touchdown receptions.
Yep, including that game winner.
Exactly. And let's not forget Patrick Mahomes. Now, this is where it gets a little surprising, right? Now, Patrick Mahomes completed 58.8% of his passes. So the Chargers did show up defensively for this game, especially since it is a divisional game, and the two of them are the best in the division, right? By a long shot, for sure. And Patrick Mahomes, this is his worst percentage since the Colts in Week 3 when he went for 57.1% in passer completion. But even then, he was still able to throw for 329 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 picks. Ricardo, so your favorite number for sure, 0 picks. Yeah, not to mention Sky Moore having the rookie Sky Moore having 5 receptions for 63 yards.
Guy had a breakout game for sure.
Of course, for sure. So Kansas City also had a rough start in the first half, right? So going into the break, the Los Angeles Chargers had scored a touchdown. So they were down 10-0, if I remember correctly. And going into the second half, but the biggest flaw going into the second half for Los Angeles is, number one, their defense started to come down and they weren't playing as strong as they were in the first half. And secondly, they did not do very well with a skill that doesn't really resonate with newcomers of football or just newcomers of a sport, especially if it's a timed one: managing the clock.
Yep, absolutely.
The Chargers did not manage the clock very well, especially on the offensive side. They scored a touchdown, yes, absolutely. They scored a touchdown to take the lead late in the fourth quarter, 27-23. That's what they made the score at the end of it. However, they gave Kansas City too much time. They gave Patrick Mahomes too much time, over 2 minutes to get down the field. And what did they do with it? They did not waste it. So, Ricardo, I just want to hear your take on this, because obviously this is a very interesting game on both sides of the ball and a very interesting defensive game on both sides of the ball. So take it away, man.
No, absolutely. Kansas City was able to adjust to that defense that Brandon Staley was throwing at them with his typical 2 safeties back at least, or cover 3 type of defense. So like pretty much for the novice at home, it's that they're not going to let anything go behind them. They're going to force you to beat them in front of them and take what's ever there and check it down for what's on there. And credit to Kansas City, man. They took that chess to the challenge, and they definitely not only Jose were they able to stay disciplined with the short game, like run here, a quick pass there, a screen over there, a 10-yard pass here, a bunch of stuff like that, is that they were able to take advantage of those breakdown plays from the Chargers side. So like they were able to find more and more weaknesses as the game went on. And then we got to give credit to the other defense as well. Kansas City held the Chargers to 1 touchdown for the whole second half.
Like, oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we could talk about that touchdown being scored too early, but it just comes down to the Chargers didn't make enough with their possessions. I mean, I'm looking right here at early on in the third quarter, you got a punt, and a fumble to start off as far as for the first 3 drives of the second half.
Not to mention Justin Herbert getting sacked 5 times.
Yeah, no, exactly.
His protection started to fall.
Yeah, and receivers coming in and out, Jose, because early on we saw him like throw it up to his old reliable big target Mike Williams for a good third down completion. Yeah. And he was out for the rest of the game with a high ankle sprain. Keenan Allen was in and out, but my goodness, did he make one of the key plays of the game to what I thought would possibly lead to a Chargers victory. But Mahomes, let's just call it what it is, man. And for this generation, my generation, like including yours, like we had, don't give Brady or Belichick too much time, otherwise they're gonna ruin the game and like win it at the last second. He's this generation's, like, as far as the 2-minute drive, he's the master.
Efficient.
He's a master at that. So if you keep it close, you're lucky if you were able to get a stop on them. And that's what ended up with the Chargers, is that, Jose, they were aggressive early on. And then once they got that lead, it was kind of like, let's just hold it. How much time's left? And that's really what I can describe as far as how this game looked, specifically on both sides. And the Chargers, I understand why they're trying to protect Justin Herbert because of his injured ribs, but they're getting too predictable with the check down game, where like they just go for underneath stuff. And I was surprised this game they were actually trying to throw the ball deeper than usual, like hey, your guy has a cannon, and that's what led to the first touchdown. Was a 50-yard touchdown bomb by Justin Herbert. Yeah. So as far as I can say it's definitely the Chiefs' season this year to like be a true contender. We're a year off as far as another team overtaking them. I was wrong with this team. Now, granted, there were injuries, but like that doesn't matter. Like you find a way to win those games, specifically when you're at home. So it's Kansas City robbing the hearts of Chargers fans once again, specifically Travis Kelce, man. I mean, how many walk-off touchdowns are we going to see him score against the Chargers in his career?
He's starting to look more like a wide receiver this season. It's insane. Yeah, it's very interesting. He's putting up a lot of these numbers. However, it was something that we didn't completely expect from the Kansas City offense going into it this season. We thought that Tyreek Hill leaving would really affect them, and like we said from the very beginning, Patrick Mahomes' football IQ is really going to be tested. And Kansas City's play calling would have to rely on the short game. Now, they've taken that and they completely ran with it, right? Literally speaking, right? They've had Isaiah Pacheco as a solid running back. They've also had Clyde Edwards-Helaire to step in whenever he needs to as well. So, Kansas City, I mean, there's really no better way to say it. They're juggernauts, man. Yeah, so we're willing to say it here on RJ Talks. We thought that the Chargers were going to be these going to be this unstoppable team, this unstoppable force, especially on defense. However, it just kind of speaks to the fact that you can't predict injuries specifically, right? Yep. You can't predict injuries. You can't predict how exactly a team is going to perform this going into this year. Now, were the Chargers going to be much better than they are playing right now had they not suffered those injuries? Sure, they definitely could have, but that's something that we can't predict. However, that's just something that we as commentators, or as you and I being humble podcasters, right? That's something that we just like to entertain, because that's just what we do.
Well, yeah, it's the oldest saying in the book, Jose. It's like you play the game. You play to win the game. The game's not won on paper.
That's right.
So it's just a matter, like, we can make these predictions all you want, but it just comes down to when the pressure's on and the game is tight, who's going to pull away? And right now, that's still Kansas City versus Kansas City with Mahomes and Travis Kelce. However, they're dominant. They are dominant this season, but I still don't have them over the Bills yet. Like they're showing impressive stuff, but I do see some weaknesses on their side as far as like moving forward. Chargers, they're going to be lucky to get that final wild card spot, Jose, because they're not going to win this division. And we got Cincinnati. We got them in Cincinnati fighting for that final wild card spot. That's how it's going, because it looks like, I mean, unless one of the AFC East teams goes downhill, then I don't see the Chargers being able to sneak in.
You know, it's
Could
just
be wrong.
oh yeah, it's just very surprising, as we had mentioned in the last episode, that the AFC East, or 2 episodes ago, the AFC East has now, as we're recording this podcast, the AFC East now has 6 wins. Each team in there has at least 6 wins. Yeah, so it seems like they're the division that are really starting to step up, when we previously had predicted that the AFC West was going to be this completely unstoppable force, man. So
Yeah, we can't talk about the disappointment from those 2 other teams, because that would take up 2 episodes.
That would take
for
up
each team.
We'll save it for
what went wrong.
We'll save it for the off season. We'll save it for the off season for sure. But
there's plenty to talk about that.
But absolutely, man. I mean, and you're absolutely correct. If you give Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid way too much time, they're going to come back and score. That's just the way of the game right now. Yeah, and they're just so damn efficient. They're so damn effective to get down the field. Right? Travis Kelce has stepped up. Sky Moore, a rookie that we didn't really expect to do a whole lot. Right now, we didn't call him out by name. However, you know, it's just a matter of we have an eye on the star players. So as a result of that, a lot of these rookies start just kind of get put on the back burner because we haven't seen them yet. Now that we've seen what Sky Moore can do, he's starting to become a name.
Well, one more thing, Jose, really quickly about that Kansas City rookie class. I didn't realize until when I was watching the game. I actually watched the whole game from start to finish Sunday night. Their secondary is all young guys, rookies or second-year guys, and I gotta say, like, they've gotten points scored on them somewhat, but they've been playing some incredible like football in their setup man-on-man against those big receivers. Now, time will tell when it's like playoff time as far as what will win, the more veteran receiver core or these young guys who are too young to know anything and like play out of their minds. We'll see when the time comes as far as how it's looking. But they got an impressive secondary as far as how they're looking as far as from what I can see, because it's a lot of man. Some zone, but a lot of man stuff going on there.
Yeah, so they're being very daring with these secondary defensive players, but while just primarily playing man, right? Any defensive play caller could just call zone and say, hey, just cover this area, you'll be good. You don't need to cover one person exactly. So that seems to be a very daring decision by the Kansas City Chiefs to have those young guys one-on-one with these veteran wide receivers. So it seems like they've been stepping up to the challenge for the most part. Granted, they're young, right? They still need time to mold themselves, but that doesn't mean that they can't do that. It doesn't mean that it's impossible for them to.
Yeah, no, and this was definitely the game of the week as far as like the 2 top teams that everyone was willing to see as far as which team is coming out and how each team's looking. And we're at that time, Jose. We'll talk about it in the next episode, but at Thanksgiving time, we're starting to see who the real teams are and who the teams that aren't going to make the playoffs are. That's just how it comes down to it.
Absolutely, yeah. That's really what it comes down to, is the result. So I don't know about you, Ricardo, but this is pretty much all that I have to say about this game. It was a fantastic one. It was a shootout for sure. Justin Herbert did not play a bad game, right? The Chargers all around didn't play a bad game. They just lost steam. So
they were just they played not to lose. That's what it was. They play not to lose, and that's usually what happens when you're not as aggressive in the second half, because they had the lead and they only scored 1 touchdown, not even a field goal to add on top of it. But
that's true. Yeah. So with that being said,
I'm ready to talk about your team, dude, if you are.
Absolutely, yeah. I was about to say, yeah, you read my mind exactly. So let's move on from a shutout to a defensive slugfest. Do not go away, everyone. All right, Ricardo, time to talk about my team. Now, from the other side of the ball, let's just talk about the Jets for a second, okay? Jets defense showed up this game. The Jets defense they absolutely were not the reason why they lost this game. The reason why they lost this game, and it's the same reason why the Jets continue to perform the way that they do, is because of one man and one man only, a boy, really, Zach Wilson. Sir, 9 of 22 passes completed, just numbers-wise, right? 9 of 22 passes completed, 40.9%, 0 touchdowns, 0 picks, whatever, and 77 yards thrown. Then, the defense, the New York Jets defense, had what was it? They had 6 sacks to their name. All right, they sacked Mac Jones 6 times, and they also held New England to 4 of 15 on third down conversions. Mm-hmm. So the Jets showed up. The Jets defense showed up. All right, so then afterwards, in their post-game conference, Zach Wilson was asked if he believes that he let the defense down, and without hesitation says no. He believes that he himself believes that he didn't let the defense down. So Ricardo, this is one of your favorite players, right? Of course,
predicted him.
Exactly. Yeah. Of course, now of course I'm being ironic, everybody, but Ricardo, Zach Wilson is one of your favorite players ever, so I think it would only be worth it to pass the baton on to you, and you share your sentiments before we move on to the New England Patriots.
Oh, I'm very happy to get this baton on. I'm just getting myself here ready as far as for my rant. I mean, what a guy, Jose! What a leader! Your defense gets 6 sacks, 6 on the opposing team. They held them to just a single field goal. Not even 6 points. I'll say just 3 points.
Right.
So all you have to do as an offense is either score, God forbid, score a touchdown. Get a good lead. You just have to kick another field goal and give them a chance to score more points, and do absolutely nothing. And I watched the highlights for those games. For this game, did absolutely nothing impressive from what I saw. Did his typical a little bit scramble drill, and the passes he did complete were all just checkdowns. They were all mainly checkdowns. Every once in a while it was a first down, but it's the same pattern of Jose over and over again of not reading defenses. Now I gotta give credit to where it's due. These Jets receivers, they're good. They're not bad. They are not bad at all. If you take a look and replay, Twitter has done it, by the way, Jose. Guys are getting open. So it's either he's not studying the playbook, which it looks a lot like it, or he's not good enough to read the defenses and see what the correct route is as far as what's going, or C, he just doesn't care enough and just decides that he wants to make the big splash play as far as for the New York Jets. All 3 of these are bad scenarios, Jose. So whatever the situation is, it's not good. It's not good, and I just gotta say, as the incredible cocky and arrogance by this guy to say, no, I didn't fail my defense. I didn't fail my defense for what's going on. When we have examples times after time, we got Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, the other Manning, Eli Manning, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers. When their teams when it's Jose, when it's clearly the defense's fault or somebody else as far as why they lost the game, what do these quarterbacks all say? Gotta be better. I gotta be better for my team. I gotta be better to make sure that we have a chance to win. I gotta perform better. When it's press conference, says Zach Wilson, if you don't know, it's usually you take the blame. It's I have to get better. I could have done more to help my team win. And when your team wins, it's yeah, those guys played great. Give credit off to the teammates. But no, it's the other way around, apparently.
Yeah. So all in all, if the team wins, it's all on Zach Wilson. If the team loses, then it's all on them, right? It's not on Zach Wilson. He did his part. He did his part every single game, obviously, right? I mean, who else can really attain a 41% passer completion percentage. Who else can do that? 77 yards as well, right? So it's beyond me. So for everybody that's listening at home, if you haven't heard already, there is no surprise to hear that Zach Wilson has been benched for this Sunday's game. So I think it's about time that the New York Jets have finally said, we've seen enough. We've seen enough of you. Take a seat. All right. Surely you're.
No, but against the elite talent, he just plays awful. I mean, who could have predicted that before the draft? I mean, there's not like years of examples of him going up against stout competition and not showing up to the test. But give him the conference that he has for 1 year, he looks incredible. He's the next best thing. Like forget consistency. I'm telling you, Jose, I have a feeling that I'm not saying like he'll be the starter, but I think Mike White is going to be their guy. And if he plays somewhat decent, and by decent I mean like get the team to score 20 points or more, they'll make the playoffs with this guy, and they'll quickly forget about Zach Wilson. You think Jets fans are tough? They hate you now, and if this other guy gives them the goods and he's humble, you're out of town. You're done. I think he personally should have been done after year one. I know who he is, and I know he's not going to get better. You are who you are, Jose. You are who you are within your 5-year span. This guy's already going to be 2 years in. He is not showing progression of getting better. He's done. He's done. I could make a whole diatribe or soliloquy as far as what's going on, but it's simple. The guy can't play in the league. He might be a good backup if he's humble enough, but he's not. I don't see him wanting to do that.
Not at all.
So
no.
Yeah.
Now
this Jets team will move forward when they get their guy. Simple as that.
They will, and it seems as though their secondary does have a chance of doing that. Now, in comparison to Zach Wilson, of course, anything is pretty much better at this point, right? So anything is pretty much better at this point. Now so their secondary is probably just foaming at the mouth for Sunday, right? Like he is probably hungry to make this team better, right? Because he's been sitting on the sideline witnessing this happening, right? Now, if he were a solid secondary, he'd be taking as much time as he can to study the playbook as much as he possibly can, just waiting, just fiending for that moment.
You better believe these guys are going to play hard for this guy. I'm telling you, dude, that he's lost the locker room completely. When you're that blatantly cocky and unaware of your surroundings and unaware of your team, those guys are done with him. So if there's a chance to make Zach Wilson look bad, you better believe these Jets are going to bring all they have to try to win this game.
Oh yeah. That was the nail. That was the nail for sure. That post game conference. I mean, it's one thing to not play very well, right? It's one thing to play badly for sure.
It happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have a bad game or a few bad games, right? It's a complete other thing to not take responsibility for those things. That's something you can't coach. That's not something you can't teach that, right? That's a mentality thing. That has to be you changing the way you approach the team, and that's you changing the way that you approach your game.
Kind of reminds me of another guy who wears number 1, who acts kind of similar. I forget what his name is. Another guy.
First person that comes to mind is Baker Mayfield, obviously, but So. But either way, yeah. So let's flip the tone here for a second. So obviously the New England Patriots came out with the win, 10-3, right? Literally the last few seconds, Marcus Jones returns the punt for the literal last play of the game, a touchdown, 84 yards, running back. Yeah. So phenomenal last play, phenomenal clutch play for sure. Mac Jones had a phenomenal game as well. Completed 23 of 27 passes, threw for 246 yards. However, he could not drive the ball down the field. And it seems like the receivers just weren't there. Dropped passes time and time again. Oh, my goodness. I mean, I'm so done with Nelson Aguilar. I'm so done with this guy. I have seen way too much of him. I'm pretty much over at this point. Now, here's the other thing too, is that, the Patriots offense have these games. They have these games where Mac Jones puts up these numbers, right, and he just looks phenomenal on paper, right? But then all of a sudden you start reading a little further into it, and you see that New England went 0 for 2 in the red zone, and Nick Folk missed 2 field goals. Now, granted, it was in wind, right? We saw another instance of this last year when they went up against the Buccaneers, right? That game-winning field goal, and then Nick Folk just missed it because it was just a crazy windy day. Sure, all right, I'll give him that. However, you're still a professional, right? And these things aren't surprises; these should be expected, right? Especially after last year. So I think Nick Folk should definitely take accountability of that and say, hey, you know what? This is something that's going to happen at the game, and it could very well be game defining, like it was last year. So maybe he could do something in and of himself to adjust to those environmental conditions, right? Now, what that is, I'm not entirely sure, but maybe he could. New England also going 0 for 2 in the red zone. It's just, look, you put up these numbers and you're driving the ball down the field, but you have to finish. You have to get it done, right? You can't just leave them 3 for 3 and then hope for a Hail Mary play in somebody like Marcus Jones at the very end of it. The Patriots got lucky. They got lucky as hell. So, in a divisional game, mind you, at home, at Gillette.
No, yeah.
So, and not to mention Mac Jones allowing himself to get sacked 6 times. That's a complete other thing. I mean, and having 4 for 15 and being 4 for 15 on third downs. All right, so
yeah,
Mac Jones can put up these numbers as much as he possibly can, but he needs to handle pressure better. He doesn't handle pressure well, right? And that's just based off of the numbers. This is consistent. We have seen this time and time again, game after game after game. He needs to be able to handle that pressure a lot better.
Well, I will say one point, Jose, that came from your team that most NFL fans do typically forget about. What's important too? Special teams, specifically for games like this. So like special teams really. A light was shown on it, like Nick Folk he just had an off day, to me, in my opinion. I mean, you knew the streak that he had for like how many field goals under 50 yards was he automatic from? I mean, it's not a typical Nick Folk kind of day when he misses 2 field goals that were like around 40 yarders, if I remember correctly.
Just about,
like
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't expect him to have that much of an off day. I just knew he was just off. That's what it was, and like it definitely cost him the game, but that punt return, man. I mean, I can't remember the last time I've seen such a clean like punt return touchdown like in today's NFL, where special teams are kind of being like pushed towards the side of toward the back burner of the game because the NFL's saying like they're not as important as offense and defense. But these games are clearly showing like this is why you get guys who know what they're doing, or you get like return specialists. We hadn't heard about Marcus Jones all year, Jose, and you and I are great as like big NFL fans as anybody. I like to argue.
Sure. So yeah.
It just comes down to a matter for a guy like taking a chance and having an opportunity to return it all the way there. But I'm telling you, man, this offense is awful. It's completely awful. They should have been blown. If the Jets had a semblance of a quarterback on the other side, Jets should have won this game by like 10 points, maybe 2 touchdowns, because I like you said, I saw them driving each individual drive, and then it was either 2 sacks in a row or an incomplete pass, and then it led to the missed field goals. So like it's just with close games like this, Jose, this is why there's some players that get paid. You got DeAndre, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson. He hasn't gotten paid yet, but he will. Jamar Chase. You need guys who can make special plays when the games are tight like this. And I mean, if Nelson Aguilar is the guy like that you guys that Belichick is relying on, Parker, or it could also be the fact that you still have a special teams coach and a defensive coordinator calling plays on the offensive side of the ball, and maybe they're in over their head and they don't know how to run specific good concepts with their personnel. That's just me. I mean, it's not like we both mentioned this early on in the summer that they need an offensive coordinator and they need more talent at the receiver's position. Jets are fine at receiver. They just need a quarterback. It's it looked very ugly. It was a very, very ugly, another ugly win for New England. But hey, a win's a win. They're still in the race, and who knows? Maybe they might steal that final wild card spot. But my point being is that they can't rely on they can't rely on something like this to happen. They're not nearly as talented enough to hold teams to close situations like this. Another good team, Jose, if they sack your quarterback 6 times, they're most likely winning that game, I would say the least. And what else did I talk about specifically New England? I mean, we got a Matt Judon showing for sure. I mean, like he like the defense did make the plays that they do against the New York Jets. It's just same old thing. Like, you need an offense, and I will say about Mac Jones, he is playing worse and worse. But Jose, I need him with another year with an actual offensive coordinator who knows what they're doing. I mean, because anybody could look bad with the situation that you have surrounding yourself with. I'm going on a rant here, but you get my point. And it's going to be the same thing until it's fixed. And until they fix it, I mean, they're just above 500, like we mentioned before. Like, we don't see them being anything special.
It just doesn't seem to me like, especially early on in the very, very early on in the season, when Bill Belichick was being interviewed, I'm not sure if he was being interviewed or if he was being, or if this was just picked up from a side conversation that he was having, when he said that I'm the guy. Like, I'm the person that's calling these plays. I am the person that has brought the Patriots to where they are now. So that seems to have revealed a very glaring issue. It's just Bill Belichick's ego, all right? And that ego has not been checked. And it seems as though people are too afraid to approach him. Or people are too afraid to approach him and say, hey, you know what? Maybe this will work out best. So until Bill Belichick is willing to drop his ego and sees the Patriots for who they are at this point in time, and his supporting staff is able to be open with him, right? Somebody please be brave enough to open up to him and say, hey, you know what? These are the issues that are starting to affect our team now. If you can't see it already, then maybe we can start looking into hiring an offensive coordinator, because this is obviously something that we need.
Yeah, I mean, the top 2 guys that he spent money on a couple off seasons ago, the tight end Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, they both combined, Jose, for 5 receptions and 60 yards.
Yeah,
guys that are getting like good contract money. I mean, like, it's okay to get help to make your team better. That makes you even more great. The fact that you can accept help. Like, I don't know why Belichick doesn't understand that. Like, it's okay to have an assistant guy to help you achieve that final goal. And like, at the end of the day, if he wins another ring, no one's gonna matter about the details. They're just gonna be like, oh yeah, Bill Belichick, 7-time champion. You know, so like
even now they're still looking at him, Bill Belichick, 6-time champion.
Like, credit's gonna be given to you if you're successful.
Yeah,
but he just doesn't want any help. He's very stubborn right now.
He is right now. He might not change either, and that's the unsettling portion of all this, is because yes, he has all of this he has all of these accolades, he has these records behind him, right? So
yeah,
if I were in his position, it would be very difficult for me to change. It's like, what do I care about what you think? What have you done? I've done all these things, right?
Yeah.
You haven't completed a fraction of that, right? Matt Patricia, failed head coach of the Detroit Lions. Like, why would I look to other people if that's something that is going to be expected, right? But either way, it seems as though the New England Patriots are just going to continue down this road. Unfortunately, I would not like for them to, but that may be the truth. But only time will tell. I could be wrong. I would love to be proven wrong, Ricardo. Trust me. I would love to be proven wrong. However,
we are the few fans that would love to be proven wrong.
Yeah.
On our takes about this.
Yeah. So I'm just sitting here going, I hope I'm wrong, but this is just what my prediction is right now. Teaching an old dog new tricks. It's just it's tough. It's not impossible, but it's tough, for sure.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. And but he still wins games. So like the team is still like doing good above 500. But as far as for the best team, I would rank them honestly. I would rank them 3 behind the Dolphins as of right now, because the Dolphins are known. I can show their weapons can explode, and obviously, I'm not moving off of Buffalo right now. I know they're struggling, but they're still going to be my team to come out of the AFC. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, if you have any more to add to this game, Jose, we can do it. But I'm pretty much good here. We can move on to the next game.
No, sir. I'm pretty much all set on this game. The Jets. The Jets are looking to be a much better team going into this Sunday, and the New England Patriots, unfortunately, are probably still going to continue stagnant going into these next few weeks. If they get a wild card spot, that's great, but we need it. But at this point, I'm just kind of waiting until next year. So,
yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move on, Ricardo, to the Rams and the Saints. A very big win for the New Orleans Saints, so do not go away. All right. The Los Angeles Rams and the New Orleans Saints. Ricardo, it seems like the Super Bowl champion fever has really, really struck the Los Angeles Rams this year in the form of injuries, unfortunately. The offensive line is just continuing to suffer, and they cannot protect Matt Stafford for any particular reason. And on top of that too, it seemed like the New Orleans Saints' offense really was just able to step up this game. Andy Dalton finished the game with 84% completion, 260 yards, and 3 touchdown passes. Mm-hmm. Alvin Kamara showed up as well, 12 run attempts for 42 yards, and as well as 4 receptions for 47 yards. So he's really proven himself to be a Swiss Army knife, so to speak. He's able to be utilized in the passing position as well as the run game.
No, absolutely. You got it on the nail, Jose. And when early on, really, never mind. I'll get into a little bit later with the Rams. But with the New Orleans Saints, who played Andy Dalton and Taysom Hill some plays coming in like throughout this game, they absolutely got the best version of a 2 QB system that they could hope for in the NFL level. Got Taysom Hill running for some extra, like running for first downs and adding a little bit of juice to the offense. When you still got Andy Dalton playing an efficient game, you gave me the numbers, Jose. That's pretty efficient, and it's no secret to why they won. 3 touchdowns. Only 4 incompletions, 0 interceptions. Very, very efficient football from that end. And I'm happy to say that one of our guys, Jose, one of our Ohio State guys, Chris Olave, had an incredible game as well.
Yes, sir.
For this game against the Rams. And I'm very happy to see him coming into his own. He was... You preferred this was actually your guy, wasn't it, that you wanted for the Patriots, or was it Garrett Wilson? I don't remember.
I would have taken either one of them, but I did really like Chris. I really liked Chris Olave in the offseason, especially watching him when he was in college this last year, because he just seems to be a lot just a bit more balanced out of Garrett Wilson than Garrett Wilson was, right? Now, Garrett Wilson is a speedster, right? But he didn't in college. It looked like he didn't really know how to control that speed, so he just ran and ran and ran. And it seemed like Chris Olave was not only a fast runner, but he was a crisp route runner as well. Now that just comes with the age, right? So I mean, Chris Olave has had a year more experience than Garrett Wilson has, so it just seems like Chris Olave is really starting to contribute something to this New Orleans Saints offense. I mean, He scored 4 or 5 touchdowns this season already, and he had one of his highest receiving games with 102 yards, if I remember correctly, as well. So
yeah,
the kid looks phenomenal. He really does.
Absolutely, and one of the things we got to give the Saints credit for, Jose, is because you and I both know what this Rams defense loves to do. They love to play safeties deep and cover everything on top with what's going on for their team. So to let their pass rush get through, to let Aaron Donald and Leonard Floyd get through.
Sure. Yeah.
So what did the What did the Saints do for this game? Short game. They did not give him a chance to get to Andy Dalton at all. I mean, well, they sacked him 3 times. When I say it's a win, because you had an efficient offense going up and down the field as opposed to stuttering drives or drives that stopped. They were able to score when they needed it most. So they just ran a short game to neutralize that Aaron Donald pass rush. And then with Alvin Kamara coming out of the backfield, like you said earlier, and specifically for this segment, it really helped out as far as like when he burns you when you check it down and he burns you to break a tackle and get a first down. It kind of forces, like, not on purpose, but it kind of forces the defense to pressure a little bit, to push a little bit further. And what was Chris Olave's biggest play of the day, Jose? They were able to finally break through that deep safety coverage, go for a 53-yard touchdown pass. So the Saints really did a good job of chipping away, and then when they finally got a chance to go deep, took advantage of it, and it's what won in the ball game. Well, that also with Matthew Stafford going out for the game, but really, like, the game was there for them to take it, to win it, and to put a positive note on their season. 2 teams really that are just out of the picture when it comes to like postseason stuff, showing a little bit of pride as far as the players that they got, and showing respect among the league when they just win a little more, to be a little bit more respectable. So incredible, great offensive game plan by the New Orleans Saints. But the Los Angeles Rams, man, they just like you just nailed it right on the head. They just look awful, like each week. Like they just look worse and worse as far as what's going on. I mean, the offensive line, Jose, for the Rams looked a little bit better. I don't know if you thought it did too, but it looked just a little bit better. Matthew Stafford just trying to get that ball out of his hands because Cooper Kupp was out for this game.
Right.
So it worked for a little bit, and they were able to score a couple touchdowns. But once he left, we got Van Jefferson, Robinson, and Skoranek for the Rams. Neither one of them made big enough plays for them to win this game. I mean, they shouldn't have won this game, but if they were going to win this game, either of those guys had to make plays.
They had to, most definitely. Now, I do have to give credit where credit is due. Matt Stafford, aside from the pressure, being put on him, he still completed 61% of his passes. He still had two touchdown passes for 0 picks. So, I mean, the guy still looked good, right? So I would say that the loss is not entirely his fault, especially since unfortunately he did have to leave in the middle of the game. So kudos to him for handling the pressure as well as he has been, right? Mm-hmm. So that's somebody, right? That's someone that can handle pressure well, right? I would say at least. I would say at least he's still able to put up the numbers, and he still looks fairly decent doing it. However, this is something that we need to address. The Saints defense, right? They had 3 total sacks with two of their starting defensive ends out. They had Cam Jordan out, and they had Marcus Davenport out, right? And not to mention, pretty much mid-game, Peyton Turner, their defensive end, had to leave with an ankle injury. So the fact that 3 of the New Orleans Saints defensive players, just star players, mind you, the fact that they were out and they still got these sacks on Matt Stafford, imagine if those guys were in for this game, Ricardo.
Imagine if they had an actual quarterback this season. I mean, there's a bunch like you and I both know this Saints team is a little bit is talented, but when you have that such depressing urge for your quarterback position, we have to make every play to win, it changes the outcome of the season because they're 4-7. I mean, they're 4-7, and then you don't know, maybe a couple of games that are one possession go their way and they're above 500. So
right. I
agree very much with your point, with what you're saying, dude. Imagine if the players that are out were in. Just shows the depth for this team with what you're saying, specifically for the defensive side, man.
For sure.
Incredible.
And it's just it's very upsetting because the New Orleans Saints are not that bad of a team. They are not that bad of a team on paper, for sure. So it's upsetting to see them play. It's upsetting to have seen them play the way that they have been this season. And of course they have been. And of course they have been undergoing injuries as well, along with the Los Angeles Rams. But imagine if those guys were in, and how much trouble the Rams would have been had those guys been in. So the Rams were lucky to
sacked Stafford more than once.
right, exactly. So my point being is that the Rams got lucky that they only lost by this much. That's what I'm getting at.
Yep.
Yeah. So had those starters been in, they would have had that. They would have had Matt Stafford's number all night. And not to mention the second string quarterback. I can't remember his name. Perkins is his last name. Right, Bryce Perkins.
Yeah.
Bryce Perkins, yeah. So his name just came back to me. So Bryce Perkins, right? The fact that he had to step in, they would have eaten him alive. They would have eaten him alive, right? And they would have been lucky to score 2 touchdowns. So the Rams got lucky. The Rams were lucky that it wasn't as bad of a loss as it could have been, right? And I know I'm being pretty hard on the Rams right now because yes, they are undergoing injuries, but that offensive line, man. You're it. Like, what else are you going to do? You see what I'm saying? So, Matt Stafford is doing what he can do, despite the pressure. So let's hope that he improve. Let's hope that he improves and he improves as soon as possible, right? As far as just his injury goes.
Absolutely, dude. And like, we talked about this team before the season started, like how hard it is to repeat.
Yeah.
I mean, people are like, this is what happens with every team that wins the Super Bowl. They win the Super Bowl and they keep most of their guys back, and it's automatic. You know, they're going to make the playoffs and have a chance to defend their title. This is reality for a lot of those teams after that magnificent Super Bowl. They have trouble. Like, stuff comes in the way in the form of injuries, like we're seeing, and in the form of bad play. Or that's why they call it the hangover. It's just bad play that we're not used to seeing from them and new issues coming up. So, I mean, there's a reason why I didn't take them to beat the I don't think you took them either as far as for the NFC, but we knew they were contenders. Like, why we didn't choose them to repeat outright, because things happen. And, like, each season is a different season. Just to close the book on this game with the Rams as far as how they're looking, it's tough, man, and they don't have any draft stock for these next couple of years, so they're gonna have to figure out what's wrong in a hurry or get some free agents on that offensive line, because they dealt out all their draft picks, man, to get the players that they have right now. So they got to figure it out quick and in a hurry.
For sure, yeah, they absolutely have to. The Rams and the Saints. I don't know if you have anything else to say, Ricardo, but
yeah, you're good.
Yeah, just to wrap things up, the New Orleans Saints. Their defense came to play. This game, and they started to look like, I didn't watch the game itself, but I watched the highlights, and as I was watching the highlights, I go, man, I mean, that's the Saints defense right there. Right? Like they were actually stepping up to the plate and unfortunately it took two of their starting defensive ends, or excuse me, two of their starting defensive player, they are defensive ends, yeah. So 2 of their starting defensive ends to be out. Right, so I'm not entirely sure if that was the match that lit the gasoline on fire, but whatever they did, it worked, and they did a damn good job doing it. So it was very nice to see the Saints defense coming back the way that they did. Andy Dalton had a game. I don't have a whole lot of faith in him moving forward. This is just probably one of those times, right? We all know who Andy Dalton is. He's been in the league for quite a few years now. So. I look at Andy Dalton's numbers and I go, okay, yeah, you had a good game. Now, I don't really expect...
He played the backup game, is what you're saying.
That's right.
Played the game as a backup.
Yeah, we don't expect any stellar play from him moving forward. As far as Matt Stafford goes, I really hope he comes back, man, because he definitely was not the reason why they lost this game. He most definitely was not. So he looked pretty solid. He looked pretty solid for the most part, and the fact that even despite all that pressure, he didn't throw a single interception, hey... Good on you, man, for sure. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the Bills and the Cleveland Browns. Another a close game in Buffalo, New York. So I can't wait to talk about that, Ricardo. Yeah, we'll be back. All right, the Buffalo Bills. Stephon Diggs said back on track after they won this game, right? So he himself is starting to feel like they're coming back, right? The Buffalo Bills, they went through a bit of a patch there. I mean, nothing too bad, nothing too bad really, but they just weren't looking like Buffalo, right? So now after this win against the Cleveland Browns, he said, "Hey, you know what? We're here. We're back." All right?
Yeah.
And there's really not a whole lot to to really say, especially when we keep the numbers in mind. I mean, we had Dawson Knox with 7 receptions, went for 70 yards, and we had Stephon Diggs with a touchdown this game. Right, and Devin Singletary, of course, coming back once again. He put on a show as well. Now, the passing game was definitely Buffalo's friend going into this, and not to mention they also didn't blow a halftime lead this time around.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they definitely avoided. They definitely moved away from that. Right. So it was good to see Buffalo coming back, being the high scoring team that they are, but also being the balanced team that they are.
Yeah, you saw what I was gonna say, Jose. Just really quickly, and then I'll let you keep going. My favorite stat of that game, you know what it was, Jose? It was that the Bills ran the ball 30 times, and that they passed the ball 27. What have we been talking about for this team? And this is an impressive win. This is what shows to get through those tough days. Keep going, dude. But you saw how Josh Allen's stats were passing the ball. That's why you need another punch to make you more dangerous. Yes,
absolutely. So 186. I'm glad that you brought that up because that's a great segue into what I was about to say. So the Bills had 186 passing yards. They had 171 rush yards, right? So total combined, 357. Very, very highly balanced, and it kept the Cleveland Browns defense honest. For sure. Yeah. In comparison, the Cleveland Browns passed the ball, had 316 passing yards and 80 rush yards. 80 rush yards. Man, dude. It's crazy. That's insane.
This Bills defense having trouble stopping the run. Can you imagine who would have thought they would have held Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb to 80 yards combined? That's a great job by them. Incredible job.
Yeah. Some of the two best running backs in the NFL right now. I mean, It's insane. So Kareem Hunt, and I'm glad that you brought that up as well. So Kareem Hunt had 5 attempts. He ran for 32 yards. Nick Chubb had 14 attempts and ran for 19 yards in 14 attempps, right? And not to mention Jacoby Brissett throwing the ball. Now, he threw the ball very well, but he threw it a lot, 41 times. Yep. Threw the ball 41 times, completed 28 of those passes, 324 yards for 3 touchdowns. Now, that's nothing to sneeze at. Those are still solid numbers. However, holding the run, and that's Stefanski's game, right? And we've already talked about it. That's Kevin Stefanski's game. He is ground and pound primarily, right? He loves the ground and pound game. So they thought that they were going to get it over the top against Buffalo. Now, they put up some decent points for sure. That's not to say that they didn't, right? But it wasn't enough. They had to keep the game balanced, but they didn't do that. So Buffalo definitely cut them down at the knees.
No, definitely, Jose. They definitely had a great start to start off the game, dude. They scored the opening touchdown 7-0, driving down on the Bills' defense, taking advantage of that short intermediate game, and running. Early on, they ran the ball somewhat effectively, and then they took the Bills to a 3-and-out, Jose. I mean, the defense held them to a 3-and-out and got the ball back to make a chance to score more points. However, Buffalo's defense held on to that. Now, going back specifically to what you were saying as far as the way the old saying goes, if you're going to beat me, I'm not going to let you do the thing you're best at. If you beat me doing something that you suck at, then incredible, great win by you. And really, dude, the Cleveland defense played how Buffalo plays towards opponent. The whole time the defense was playing a man too high safety this whole game. So they were like, you can take the underneath stuff. We'll give it to you all day. We're going to force you to go underneath. We are not going to let you get those receivers going deep for 40-yard bombs, 50-yard bombs. Josh Allen rolling to his right or to his left and throwing it deep. That's not going to happen. We're going to force Josh Allen to make a decision to whether try to run to the line of scrimmage and get more yards, or to throw it down to the checkdowns. And Jose, when I was watching this game, I had to double take for a second. I'm like, wait a minute. Is Josh Allen throwing a 5-yard pass to have his player like try to make some moves, or like throwing a check down here, throwing a screen run, running the game, Devin Singletary gashing through the Cleveland Browns defense? I was like, Buffalo's being balanced. They're adding it to their game. And dude, what have I been screaming at the top of my lungs for Buffalo to make them a great team? What have I been screaming about?
You read my mind. That's exactly what I was going to bring up next. If you weren't going to already, it's like, this is the one thing. Like, what was it, like 2 or 3 weeks ago? You were talking about this, and you said, look, this is one of the things that I'm noticing out of Buffalo is they're relying too much on Josh Allen. That's pretty much what it is. Like, to Josh Allen to make the big play. So now, we're seeing this, and it's like, oh crap, they're actually listening, right? It's like they're actually doing something different. They're not relying too much on Josh Allen. So Josh Allen is their guy, bar none, for sure. He is one of the most effective and one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL. However, he's not a superhero. He's not a superhero.
Yeah, and this kind of got me the feel of a playoff game, Jose. They got scored on quickly. They're not doing their usual stuff. They still got to find a way to win, and this is exactly what they did, Jose. They found a way to win, and they were not discouraged by the fact that they didn't get that big play. You and I have always talked about this with big play teams. What is the one thing to their downfall is that they get impatient. They want to score now. They want to try to get someone over the top to feel good. They can't take the fact that they have to drive all this way for sometimes maybe just a field goal, or it takes like 5 minutes of game time to score a touchdown, or sometimes you just have to run the ball a couple plays. The Bills, if they're able to keep this up, Jose, but this is the direction I wanted them to be in, is that be more balanced, because that's when you'll really be unstoppable if you're able to do this stuff against good teams. Find a way to win, and being physical at the point of attack and being like, okay, we'll take each play. We'll play towards the next down. We just need 10 yards. We don't need to score the touchdown now, but we'll be close. And we got that big 6'6" superhero back there sometimes that can run it in or is able to find openings. So I have to say Cleveland defense did the very best that they did against Buffalo, because they played man all game, too high safety, and they played the right strategy, Jose. They didn't try to match him big play with big play. They're like, we're gonna force Buffalo to be methodical, and we can beat them that way. But Buffalo was able to push through and be completely methodical all the way towards the end of the game. Well, not the end of the game, the second half, when they got the 2 touchdown lead, and it was pretty much over at that point. But that's my take on Buffalo as far as it's doing, is that they did a good job against that Cleveland defense, and I'm excited to see how they look moving forward. I mean, we're coming around that time, Jose. We'll see.
Yeah, we are, and they're making the adjustment just before Thanksgiving. Now, next week we're going to be talking more about their game against Detroit. Right now, At the time of this recording, they have pulled off the win. Right, so good on them. Yeah, it was a very close game. It was a very close game on both sides. However, I want to save that for next week. I don't want to talk too much about that, but. Just some final remarks on this game. The running backs are the Bills running backs are definitely good, solid secondary guys behind Josh Allen, right? Devin Singletary and James Cook, they each ran for 86 yards. They both ran for they ran for 86 combined yards. So they were able to take responsibility. They were able to offer some help to Josh Allen. And on top of that too, I think we need to give another Buffalo player some credit. Tyler Bass. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that right. Like, their kicker, Tyler Bass, fantastic all around. Like, he made all 6 of his field goals, and he tied his career high. Right, so this is his career high at this point. This is just somebody that I wanted to give a shout out to, was Tyler Bass. Fantastic gameplay, very consistent gameplay all throughout that. So the Bills, from their special teams to their offense to their defense, they're coming together, man. And I think I want to repeat Stephon Diggs' remarks and say we're back on track, because it's really looking that way. So I'm very excited to see what the Buffalo Bills do.
Absolutely. They're just finding ways to win and showing that the entire team is good, to be potential to be great. Not just the quarterback or the receivers, but the whole team. Like Tyler Bass, dude, like you nailed it right on the head. I mean, when did we think the Bills were going to need field goals to win this game? They needed absolutely all of those field goals to like keep the momentum going throughout the game. For sure, man. And closing remarks, I mean, we'll see how this Bills team's looking in Cleveland. It's going to be interesting. It's not going to be the next episode that we release, but probably a couple weeks after, when Deshaun Watson comes back. That'll be interesting to see when it comes back. But as far as for this final remarks in this game, Bills showed improvement, and that's what gets me very excited about them moving forward. And I'm excited to move forward with the team of the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles, going against the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, so you don't want to miss that. This is our final game that we're going to be covering, so do not go away for that. All right, Ricardo, all I can say is, Damn, this was a close game. Holy crap. 17-16, the Philadelphia Eagles overcame a 10-point deficit here against the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts, who have been struggling all season, and a team that we didn't expect for them to have any kind of trouble with, right? However, we didn't expect them to have any trouble against Houston either, but that's just kind of the way it happened. So the Eagles are now 9-1, 9 wins and 1 single loss. All right. So Jalen Hurts came in clutch on this game, scored a 7-yard touchdown run, right? A 7-yard touchdown run with just a minute and 20 seconds to give Philly the first lead that they had the entire game. So it's very good to see that the Eagles are still continuing to keep their bases on track, right? Especially against the AFC South that they are now 3-0 against. So that's really something to keep in mind, especially for the Philadelphia Eagles team here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Really quickly, if I could describe this word in this game in 2 words, Jose: defensive slugfest. This was, even though the Patriots and Jets game was like less points, this was really a very intense defensive game going like throughout the whole thing. And you had it right. The Eagles were struggling the whole game. It looked like the potential for a big upset, pretty much.
Yep.
But one thing that it just gets me excited about this team, though, is that Jalen Hurts did not back down from the challenge. Like, he was the reason that they won that game, as far as like him driving the team down the field, or him scoring both of those touchdowns necessary to win the game, one passing, one running. I mean, I can't say enough about his poise, his leadership going with this game. But Eagles definitely made some questionable decisions as far as like moving forward. But really quickly, one name I do want to bring out, Jose, as far as who made a presence and felt known there for the defense. Ndamukong Suh getting that sack on Matt Ryan. I mean, putting a presence in the middle of the teeth of that defense, it's going to get them excited, going big, and we'll see how many teams try to keep running the ball. I mean, they held to Jonathan Taylor to 84 yards, still scored a touchdown, but it's getting better little by little. We'll see how they do next week.
Oh, my goodness. The former Buccaneer.
Yep.
The former Buccaneer really making a statement in this first game. So the Eagles are the Eagles defense are the stars of this game, for sure. Yeah. Now, they didn't start off very well, right? But this was just the opening drive, right? They allowed a 75-yard touchdown drive on just the first possession of the game for the Indianapolis Colts. But after that, they held the Colts to 3 field goals. Only 3 field goals. Yeah. And although the Colts had 4 first downs in their opening drive, they were only held to 10 first downs and 209 total yards the entire time for the rest of that. So just so just keeping those numbers in mind, it's very interesting to see that this game was also a defensive slugfest like the Patriots and the Jets, but it was just a bit more high scoring, right? But it could very well just be compared to that, right? So just because one game is not as high scoring as another, it doesn't mean that it wasn't a defensive slugfest for sure.
Really quickly, Jose, as a guy who loves and prides himself on defense, this week I saw a lot of 2 deep high safety man coverage played in these games, and this one was no different. Both of these teams played 2 high safeties and man all day long, and they were forcing the other team to beat them in front and like take the small stuff, and you were forcing them to beat them. And this shows the poise. I mean, granted, the Colts got shut out the rest of the game, like they just got field goals, but I'm talking specifically about the Eagles against that kind of defense. It really just shows their offense not being impatient and okay with punting the ball when necessary and just taking what's in front of them and playing for that longer term goal and specifically trying to win that game. So there's certainly been a week, Jose, I'm trying to wrapping this up really quickly, is that there's certainly been a week of defensives making adjustments to the offense and then the offense finding counters to those specific defenses because everyone wants to throw the ball deep pretty much. Everyone wants to score quickly, but that's taken away. Let's see how good you really are when you don't get those freebies off of a blown coverage. So Eagles were definitely the star of this game, and I really thought, Jose, that the Eagles were going to be in trouble when they went for it on 4th down early in the 3rd quarter on a 4th and 10 play call. But Philly's defense up to the rescue again. I mean, this just importance, Jose, of a well-balanced team on offense and defense, because you're going to have games like this where one is required more than the other. And, man, it's going to be hard to pick against Philly when postseason comes around, but they're looking very, very impressive so far.
Yeah, they still are. And even this far into the season, going into Thanksgiving or post-Thanksgiving, now that this is being recorded, right, it just the Eagles just continue to come out of those trouble spots, right? I mean, because at the end of the day, they did struggle throughout the game, but they got the win. What do we keep saying, right? So it's not necessarily the struggle that you go throughout the game. It's the fact that, okay, can you pick yourselves up and can you get the win? Right, because that's ultimately what's going to take you to the playoffs. All right, now that's not to say that at this point the Eagles are not going to make the playoffs. Oh yeah, they're for sure, right? They are very well looking that way, right? But at the same time, the Eagles have shown consistency throughout week after week after week after week. So it's easy for me to say that they very well could go all the way, right? Not win the Super Bowl, right? But could go to the Super Bowl. That's really what I'm putting it at. Yeah. But let's see how the postseason rolls, right? Let's see how that happens. Now, as far as the Colts go, right, you see the Colts still continuing to struggle, right? And the fact that Matt Ryan was still in the game, right? He threw for 213 yards for sure, and Jonathan Taylor still. He had 84 rush yards, but he averaged 3.8 yards. So, again, that's another testament to the Eagles' defense and how effective they were in stopping the run, right? Now, and Matt Ryan is still continuing to show that, yes, he's fine, right? But he's just not a good quarterback for the Colts.
He's just old, man.
That's really what it is.
He's just old. Yeah. Like his best years were in Atlanta when that team wasn't helping him at all, and he was pretty much just dragging them to win some games going on here and there. But Colts definitely have a lot of rebuilding to do when it comes to finding skill position players at the receiver end, Jose. I mean, they're very, very streaky right now with these young guys. And like, I'm not trying to be mean, but like, you just got to face the facts when it comes to like their passing game. Looks very pedestrian most of the time. And it really hinders Jonathan Taylor, specifically this season, because everyone knows that he's the number one option, number one guy. And, just goes to show you that it's hard to replace a franchise quarterback. Like Andrew Luck retiring 5-6 years ago, they still cannot find that quarterback to lead their team that is promising a playoff team, but they need that guy to lead them. Now that they built the team a little bit better than it was before, it's too little too late. And we'll see how they finish out the year. I don't anticipate Jeff Saturday being their head coach moving forward, but it's definitely going to be a good story and good for the guys on that locker room to follow him and try to lead to a more better record. But Colts are definitely done for the season as far as like any potential playoff hopes. I definitely give it to the Titans, and I honestly see the Jaguars a little bit better team than they are right now as the Colts. But much more for me to say on the Colts specifically for them moving forward in this game. I don't know if you have any final thoughts, Jose.
I do not. But I mean, I will say this. You know, the Colts, we had a lot of high hopes for them going into this season. But again, this is just. It seems like this is the theme of the episode, Ricardo. We can make all of these predictions, but we can't predict these kinds of this lack of play, so to speak, right? So we thought that Matt Ryan was going to be adjusted pretty well going into a new team. At least that's what we always hope for, especially for some of the older quarterbacks saying, hey, you know what? We've seen that you can do it. Like, we've seen that you've been the guy for another team, so maybe, you know, going into a new place is going to be something better for you. But it just seems like Matt Ryan should, unfortunately, to me at least, it seems like he should just hang up the pads. All right, he had a great run, right? There's no shame in that. So I think for sure, for right now, that's pretty much what my opinion is. As far as the Eagles go, keep flying. They look fantastic. They really do.
And we'll be excited to share with you guys that next week of football and these games that just already happened when this gets posted. So don't go away anywhere. The season's just getting more excited, and we'll see you guys next week.
For sure. We'll see you guys next week. And if you like what you hear, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel and also follow our Instagram for any other updates. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week.